Hello everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about why I believe most play-to-earn games will fail. Before I get into that, I do want to give a reminder that we're currently have out a survey. We're curious about the community's thoughts about our content. Do you like what we've been putting out? What kind of things would you like to see more of? Those kind of things. And also, we're collaborating with Jay over at Daily Crypto Analysis to put together a website that will host live risk data, both from our upside downside potential indicator and from Jay's DCA risk index, as well as other models that we have and other crypto data. And so the survey will also be getting your feedback about that website. What would you like to see? What types of data would you like to see, etc. And by doing that survey, we want to give people some early access to UDPI data, specifically for Bitcoin and Ethereum. So you'll get access to just a nice little dashboard that will have live UDPI data for both Bitcoin and Ethereum across the 3 different timeframes that we monitor. Now, that survey is going to close down on Sunday, so there's only a couple days left to do it. So if you're interested in doing that, make sure to do it before we close that down on Sunday. Then we'll be sending out a link to this dashboard on the following Monday. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the focal topic, why I believe most play-to-earn games will fail. Now, before I really get into this, I'm not bearish on NFT gaming. In fact, I think NFT gaming has a lot of promise. What I want to talk about today, though, is some of the things that I think could present problems for a lot of the current play-to-earn models that are out there, and then provide some, actionable solutions that may follow. So if you've been following this space, you've probably seen a lot of the takes saying that this is really the next big thing, right? That play to earn is the future of gaming. That it's driving, NFT and crypto adoption, and plenty of people on Twitter saying it's going to be the next big thing. But what I want to talk about is a word of caution from my perspective, specifically from a cognitive science perspective, something that I think is problematic about the way that a lot of play to earn models are being put out there, and how I think this could be really problematic, could backfire, could lead those games to have a lot of problems, to not be sustainable. Then also what could be done about it. So what's wrong? I'm going to center my argument around something that's called the Overjustification Effect, and I'll get into that in a minute. And I'm also, though, going to provide my thoughts of what can be done to maybe address these concerns. Because again, I don't want to just throw stones, just complain, just say what I think might be wrong. I want to give some productive steps. I want to be constructive here. What could actually be done to address these problems that I want to identify? So the first thing that we need to do to get into the argument I want to make is understand motivation, specifically 2 different types of motivation that we can think about. So with motivation, we can think, what is it that motivates us to do something, right? That's a question. It could be something that's known as intrinsic, something internal to the self. And this would be something like just, I enjoy to do it. I just want to do this because I enjoy it, because I find it fulfilling, I find it important, whatever the case may be. It's something that I just want to do it. There's no extrinsic reason for it. I'm not being rewarded, not being forced to do it, not being coerced into doing it, anything like that. Or alternatively, I could be doing something for an extrinsic reason. I could be extrinsically motivated. And what this means is that I'd be engaging in some behavior because I'm being rewarded for it, because I'm being forced to do it, etc. So let's take gaming. Let's say playing a game. Someone could be intrinsically motivated to play games because they just enjoy the game. They just like it. Let's say I just enjoy Call of Duty, so I just go and I play it. And that's just the way it is. I just intrinsically enjoy doing it. I'm not being forced to do it. I'm not being rewarded for it. I'm just doing it. But you could also imagine that a gamer could be extrinsically motivated to play a game. Let's say that the person was being sponsored by the game developer to play it, and they're being paid money to play the game. That would be an extrinsic motivation. They're playing for the reward. They're playing for that monetary compensation. Or, like we're talking about in a minute, with play to earn, I could be playing the game because I want to earn money through it. But that would, again, be this financial incentive. It's an extrinsic motivation. I'm playing it for the money. I'm not playing it for enjoyment of the game. That would be extrinsic motivation. So why does this all matter? Well, what's important about this is that there are different kind of behavioral or continuation, sustainability consequences based on what type of motivation is driving me to, in this example, play a game, or in this use case, play a game. So what we know from research on these topics is that people will only engage in extrinsically motivated actions or behaviors when that extrinsic motivator is present. So with gaming, for example, and money, I'll only play the game if I'm getting the money. If the money dries up, if the money's not coming in, if not being rewarded, I'm not going to play the game. That's the idea. I'm only going to do it when that financial incentive is present. But if I'm intrinsically motivated, so if I'm playing the game because I enjoy it, I want to play it, I like it, I'm just going to continue playing that game no matter what. There's no external reason for me to do it. So I might just choose, I'm going to go play that game now because I enjoy it. Something that's fun. It's my hobby. It's what I do. And so that's going to be more sustainable, more likely. Intrinsically motivated things are more likely to continue, whereas extrinsically motivated behaviors are only going to occur while that motivator is present, while in this case, that reward is present. So for a video game to be sustainable and successful, as the developer, you'd probably want your players or your customers to be intrinsically motivated to play your game. You probably don't really want people to be extrinsically motivated to play it, because the second that those rewards stop or get interrupted, a lot of those people might just head to the exit, go somewhere else where they can earn or they can get better financial incentives for going elsewhere. And this brings us to the main thing I want to talk about in terms of being important here, which is known as the Overjustification Effect. Now, Lepper, Green, and Nesbitt were the first people to identify or to really document empirically this effect back in the 70s. So in brief, what they did in their study was that they went to a school, and so students were their participants, and they basically randomly assigned participants, without the participants knowing that they were being randomly assigned to these different groups. They told half of the students that they would be rewarded for engaging in a behavior. In this case, it was playing with markers. So these were younger students. And then the other half of students just weren't told anything about a reward, but then they also got to play with the markers. So everyone played with the markers, but half of the students did it, or were told they were going to get a reward for having done it. The other half were not told anything about a reward. They then went back to the same students several weeks later and gave them the opportunity to play with those markers again, or some other kind of activities that they could choose from. And what they found was that students who had been rewarded for playing with the markers the first time now were not very interested in playing with the markers again, because the second time there was no reward that was being offered for playing with the markers. Whereas the other half of students who had never been told anything about a reward and had not been rewarded the first time, they actually played with the markers. They played with the markers again because they just enjoyed it. They infer that they enjoyed it, so they did it. Whereas those who had been rewarded the first time, they concluded the only reason they had done it the first time was because of the reward. So then when given the opportunity to do it later, absent a reward, they said, well, screw that. I did it for the reward the first time. I'm not doing it now for no reward. You got to pay me. What's going on? They went elsewhere. They did something else. They didn't do it. And that's the overjustification effect. It's this idea that people who have been rewarded for some behavior in the past will be less likely to continue that behavior if that reward is no longer presented. And they're going to be less likely to engage in the behavior than people who were just never rewarded at all for the behavior ever. The people who just did it for nothing before. Because those people who did it of their own volition before will conclude that they did it for intrinsic reasons, whereas people who had gotten a reward in the beginning, they conclude that the only reason they engaged in that behavior was for the reward. That was the reason they did it. So if you're not offering a reward the second time, they say, screw you, I'm going to go do something else. You got to give me a reward. That's the only reason I did it in the first place. And what's important is this can happen even in cases where that behavior would have been intrinsically enjoyable to people who had been rewarded, right? So let's say that there's a game, and this game is really fun. It's a fantastic game. But let's say that the first time that I was going to go play that game, someone said, hey, I'll pay you $100 to go play that game. Well, what happens is in my mind, I say, okay, I'm playing this game for $100. So I'm doing it for the extrinsic reason. That's the way I framed it in my head. I'm doing it for the reward. I'm not doing it for the gameplay or for the game itself. So then in the future, if someone says, hey, do you want to play that game? And they don't offer me money, I'll say, no. I did it for $100 last time. Why would I do it for free now? Why would I do it for nothing? I did it for the reward. You got to give me a reward for me to do it again. Otherwise, I'm going to go elsewhere. Even if that game's actually amazing, the idea is that you've kind of poisoned the well, that the reward frames it in people's mind that they're doing it for the reward, not for the game itself. And so people are just less likely to continue it than people who never had gotten a reward in the first place. So if I had played that fun game without any reward, then sure, I'd play it again the second time, because there's nothing in my head saying that I'm doing it for rewards, because that's never been on the table. It's been separate. So that's the important thing, is this idea that when people have been rewarded for something in the past, they then conclude the main reason that they ever engaged in that behavior was for the reward. So if that reward goes away, they're not going to engage in that behavior anymore. So this is an effect that's quite robust. So this is a meta-analysis, a little bit old here, but there have been many subsequent studies that have been done that also confirm this effect. It's been shown across age groups, across tasks, etc. This is something that shows up a lot. This idea of overjustification. The idea that if I've been rewarded for something in the past, if that reward goes away, I'm probably not going to engage in that behavior anymore, even if that behavior could have been intrinsically enjoyable for me. So how does this fit into play to earn? Well, what I want to argue is that from the overjustification effects perspective, the problem is in the name. It's in the name of play to earn. If you ask yourself, why am I playing a play to earn game? The reason is to earn. You're being told that that's the reason you're playing, right? You're being literally told in the name of these games that the reason you're playing is to earn money. It's not for the game itself. It's not for the fun. It's not for the enjoyment. That's not what you're being told about. The marketing, the branding, everything is telling you that the reason that you're playing this game is to earn, not because of the game itself or anything fun about it. Financial incentives to play a game are extrinsic motivators. They are things that are not about the game itself. It's not something that is intrinsic to you that's leading you to play that game. You're doing it for the financial incentive. You're doing it for that monetary reward. So what's going to happen in this context with our understanding of the overjustification effect is that many people, probably not all, these effects, it's always in the aggregate. There's always going to be some people going against the rule. But overall, people are going to be inferring that they're playing the game for the reward and not for any enjoyment of the game. And so that's problematic potentially from a sustainability perspective. This should say play to earn. Play to earn is only sustainable if rewards are constant, if they're consistent. Now you might say, well, then what's the problem? These are crypto games, right? The rewards are constant. It's built in. You're earning the in-game cryptocurrency. You can use that in the game. You can, use that to buy NFTs, to mint NFTs, depending on the game, etc. What's the problem? Well, we know with crypto that it's highly volatile, right? If you're someone who got into Axie Infinity, so this is SLP, the in-game currency for Axie Infinity. If you got in when SLP was up at around 40 cents and now it's trading, less than half of where you got in, that financial reward is way less than when you were in there. So you might just say, well, why am I continuing to play Axie? Maybe I should go look for a different game that's offering me a better financial incentive right now. And so that's the issue. That's the problem, is everything gets focused on the monetary profit you can make. And it's nothing about the game itself. So if the profit lowers too much, or if greener pastures arise elsewhere, better yielding games arise elsewhere, I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to stick with Axie. And this could be a problem that if you want to invest in a pay-to-earn game because you think it's going to be successful, you'd want a game that's going to be sustainable, right? That's going to be able to keep its player base and grow in value so that that initial investment you put in will do well. But the problem is that if people are just going to be kind of mercenaries, more or less, just move to the places with the highest yield, then the second that there's weakness in the crypto price of whatever game that you're focused on, people might just pack up and leave, go elsewhere. And that could leave an exodus of money coming in and the token to tank. Well, you could say, okay, but if the game is really fun, none of this will matter, right? If it's just so much fun, then it's all going to be fine. But we already talked about this. With the overjustification effect, it's already too late. If people have come in with the mindset that they're playing the game to earn, no matter how fun the game is, that's actually often not going to matter at all. I mean, the most fun game in the world. But people, if they're focused, if their framing is all on the earn, they're not going to care about the fun. They're just going to go somewhere else where they could earn more, even if it is less fun. Because again, that's what they're focused on. Again, this should be play to earn. That's just a typo there. Play to earn games are oftentimes also don't even have that element of them being really fun to begin with, though. Oftentimes they'll put the earn before the fun. So, for example, with Axie Infinity, I'm not trying to dunk on Axie. If you're a fan of Axie, more power to you. I'm just using it as an example because it's one of the more prominent blockchain games out there. But, you know, people saying that it's a boring game, it's not especially fun. There's a lot of these takes that you'll get there. And it's not just Axie. There are a lot of these different blockchain games that a lot of people say, you know, yeah, the game itself isn't really all that fun, but I do it because I can earn money. So again, it's unclear to me that many games have even gotten that really fun element. So it's unlikely, in my opinion, that I could just save these games, both from the overjustification perspective, but also just a lot of these games, from the sounds of it, are not even all that much fun to begin with. So yeah, play-to-earn games often put the earn before fun. But you might say, well, you know, Mark, that's the innovation. That's how it should be, right? You know, that's really the innovation of blockchain gaming, is this ability to earn off of those in a way that you couldn't do in other games. So that should be the main focus, you might argue. All right, but then you also just have to think, you know, who are you attracting with that business model, right? If the focus is on earning, and that's really what putting all your emphasis on, are you really going to be attracting gamers? You know, people who are like hardcore gamers who just enjoy playing games, that's something they do for fun? Or are you going to be more just attracting the people who are just coming in for the quick buck and will just leave the second that the rewards dry up? I would suspect personally that if it's clear you're putting more emphasis on the earn than the game, the people coming for gameplay aren't going to stick around or aren't even going to come at all if they think it's just a crummy game. But the people who want the money are going to be the people who show up. But then they're also the ones who are probably just going to leave the second those rewards disappear. The other issue I want to bring up here that I think is relevant is the fact that a lot of these play-to-earn games use a model that you could call pay-to-win-to-earn. The idea, again, not dunking on Axie Infinity, it's just another, the biggest example. This idea that these games oftentimes have a model where you have to, just to play the games, spend a lot of money to get in there. And then the more money you're willing to spend, the more competitive advantage you can actually gain in a lot of these games. And the reason that this could be an issue is that gamers hate play-to-win games. They hate games where people can just buy competitive advantages and then use that to just win or to unfairly, you know, beat up on other people. You know, no one enjoys playing a game where you're just getting crushed by someone who put in several $1,000s into it just to go stomp on everyone. It feels very unfair. That's not something that people like. And, you know, not everyone has the financial resources to dump thousands of dollars into a game. And also, even from the perspective of the people who do buy stuff, it does kind of cheapen the experience as well. You know, part of the value that comes from games is setting goals, is achieving, working to unlock things, or depending on the game, you know, gain experience or whatever the case may be. So if you can just buy that for yourself, it kind of cheapens that experience as well. So really, with pay to win is a label that no game developer wants their game to get slapped with, because gamers really don't like it. It's very much a derogatory term in the gamer community. If you're calling a game pay to win, that's basically you calling that game trash and a game that people shouldn't play. So that's another thing that I think is potentially problematic with a lot of these play to earn games, is not only from that cognitive science perspective, but also they're embracing a business model that we already know a lot of gamers really despise. So we put this all together, play-to-earn games, we know they're susceptible to the overjustification effect, that people will think they're only in it for the reward and they won't care about the gameplay, even if the gameplay is actually okay or good. We know that that will then lead people to be less likely to stick around. If rewards were to falter for that game, they're more likely to leave. So again, if you're trying to invest in a game for a long-term, profit, then you got to be worried about, are these games ones that people are actually going to stick around, that could actually really grow in value, be that game that really takes NFT gaming to the next level? Or is it something that people are just going to leave when greener pastures arise elsewhere, and then it'll just be a proposition that you end up losing money on? We also know that pay-to-win models turn off gamers, and so that's a model that's embraced by a lot of these games. That could be a problem. And so, and then also finally, this focus on the earn side oftentimes results in games that are unable to stand on their own merits in terms of their gameplay. That really people oftentimes are just coming in for the earn side, and the game has been a kind of an afterthought. So the game is kind of a shell built around this earning platform, rather than it just being a game with these crypto elements being added in to provide extra utility or value. But as I said at the beginning, I don't want to just throw stones. I want to talk about what might be some solutions to these problems that I've raised. Well, one thing that companies could do is just make games first, incorporate crypto and NFTs second. What I mean by this is make a really fun game first, make sure your game is fantastic, and then think about ways that you can incorporate crypto that'll improve the experience, but with any earning being a perk rather than the sole reason that people are coming. So you want people to come to play the game for its own sake, You want them to have the intrinsic attributions of motivation. You want them to think that the reason they're playing it is for the enjoyment of the game, and then just any earning that they're getting on the side being a perk, but not the sole reason they're being there. So they still stick around even if those rewards tapered off, but it's just a nice added benefit. And one of the other things that these games could do to get around this pay-to-win type of problem is make the crypto aspects cosmetic. And what I mean by this is make anything that's buyable, tradable, anything that uses the currency or that is tradable via NFT or something like that, make it aspects of the game that do not give a competitive advantage. So to give some prominent examples of games that I think have done this quite well and have shown that people do value these things quite highly, even things that don't give a competitive advantage, are games like Counter-Strike, which has an entire economy in it for skins for guns, that people will pay thousands of dollars for these rare skins for guns that give no competitive advantage. Your gun doesn't work better by having one skin on it versus the other. It's exactly the same. It's just that people like the scarcity, they like the status symbol that it gives to have this rare skin. They're willing to pay a bunch of money. And it would totally work in an NFT platform, and it might be something that gamers would actually prefer, because one of the problems with Counter-Strike is that Steam, the platform that all works in, being a centralized kind of exchange of those skins, takes a pretty hefty cut of every transaction. If you could have an efficient proof-of-stake blockchain handling transactions instead, it would be a fraction of the cost, which the people playing the game would appreciate, not having to pay the middleman so much. And then it also could be the case that the game developer could profit very well. You know, if it's a proof of stake blockchain, they could be, you know, staking, they could be running nodes to earn money. That would also give an incentive to the game developer to make sure that the crypto aspect is staying healthy and that gamers are staying around, because that would be one of the ways that they'd be monetizing the whole thing. So it could be really a win-win that could work in a lot of different ways. But again, it would avoid that pay-to-win aspect, because the things that you're involving in the crypto aspect don't have any competitive advantage. But people will still value it. We already know that. There's proof existing in these games that people will value those things. And Warzone's another example. Not quite the same. There's not really so much the economy of trading across players, but it's just another very popular game that largely monetizes itself off of selling cosmetic items. And so it's not the case that people will only play these games if they can buy their way to victory. We already know there's a lot of value that can be placed in just these purely cosmetic elements of games. And in my opinion, that's probably going to be the much more likely route to success for some kind of NFT game, rather than one that's just seen as another pay-to-win game that people don't really want to get into from that perspective. And so really to wrap up, what I want to say is that I do believe that NFT gaming could be the future of gaming. I think there's a lot of innovation here that can be tapped, a lot of really useful things that can be done that could improve on existing implementations in these games. But what I really just want to say here is that as things currently stand, I believe most play-to-earn games will fail that are using this existing play-to-earn model. But I think there's a lot that could be done that could then make the games that do make it very successful and set the tone for the future.